Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're talking about how good is Tom Brady. I apologise to Pats fans in advance. I couldn't find a lot of video footage that I'm allowed to use to back up this argument whilst he was at the Pats. Please know that any chance I have, I will certainly include Brady's time at the Pats. So we all know how good Tom Brady is, but the 2020 season really separated Brady from the argument that it was mainly Bill Belichick that they got all the wins. However, Brady proved a lot more than this. There are a lot of reasons why Brady is so good. The stuff he does in the locker room, the texting to teammates instilling belief that they're going to win, all of this has only just come out. We didn't hear much of this back then. But why is Brady consistently able to help his teams win? Why is he so calm under pressure? Why does he execute during clutch moments? I've said it before, we only see the results of what Brady does. We can only speculate at why he's so good.
A couple of weeks ago, after the NFC Championship game in which Tom Brady and the Bucs went to Green Bay and won, and I brought up the idea that a year ago at that time, we were just coming off a Titans loss in the AFC Championship game. And the odds on where Tom Brady would land in free agency in the offseason if he was going to leave New England skewed very much in favor of Tennessee. That the odds and the projections were that Brady would sign with the Titans if he was going to leave New England. And I said it at the time last year on multiple different platforms that I thought the Titans should be all in on that move if, and this was a big if at the time, but if they knew that Brady was healthy. Because he did not play particularly well last year, didn't play great against the Titans in the playoffs. But the question to me wasn't, is Tom Brady great? It was, how much of that might be some injury he's going through, and how much is that this Patriots team just isn't very good? But I thought if you had the assurance that Brady was healthy, that you've got to roll the dice on that. Because you're talking about the greatest player in the history of the NFL. And if he could come to your franchise and provide all the things I was talking about earlier, those late night text messages telling guys who haven't been there before what to expect and that they will win. The locker room camaraderie that comes around. The guys who signed in Tampa Bay after Brady was signed himself just because they wanted to play. Rob Gronkowski coming out of retirement just to play with TB again. Antonio Brown becoming a good soldier and coming in and not demanding anything more than his role just because he wanted the chance to play with Tom Brady and win with Tom Brady. Leonard Fournette, who had been a guy that was hard to motivate week in and week out throughout the course of his career. When he was freed up, choosing to go to Tampa Bay for the opportunity to play with Tom Brady. It's those things that Brady brings to the table that made me think at the time that that's why you roll the dice here.
Let me ask you real quick, just because we're all in awe of what Tom Brady and Bill Belichick have done. I mean, you've had an incredible career, played a long time, have only got an opportunity to be in one of these.
Yeah.
What do you think when you see someone like Tom Brady and know that he's playing in his 9th one today?
Well, I mean, you're just mesmerized by what he's been able to do, but you just respect his commitment year in and year out to continue to do this and to put forth the effort and to do it with different receivers, a different combination, new lines, different coaching staff. I mean, he's able to overcome everything, injuries and setbacks. I mean, it's unbelievable he's able to find the mental fortitude to continue to push forward, to do it every single year. And, I mean, this is just a dream come true to watch one of the greatest to ever do it in any sport.
Carson, how impressive is it watching Tom Brady dominate over the years, no matter who he's throwing to, no matter what talent or the lack thereof that he's got around him?
Yeah, and what never gets talked about him is the atmosphere and the environment he has to throw the football in. I mean, when you look at quarterbacks that, like myself, that played in Arizona in a dome on grass, you know, half my games, but then you look at him having to go to Buffalo, him having to go to New York and play in the Meadowlands all those years, and then playing there in Foxborough, and the numbers he's put up, wet, cold, windy, snow, you name it. He's done it year after year in that environment. And I don't think it's kind of like earlier you were talking about Brett Favre's, about how tough he is in that streak. That streak is the most impressive stat in all of sports. Right behind that is what Tom Brady's done in inclement weather over 18 years.
And so I think it's okay to revisit that conversation if the Titans made the right move or not. It's not going to change anything now. Brady certainly feels like he made the right choice by ending up in Tampa. And the Titans have Tannehill under contract for a while. So that's not going to change. But when you think about it, and what maybe could have been, I don't think it is crazy to ask the question, if Brady would have come to Tennessee, would this season have played out differently? Would the defense have been a little bit better? Would the team, just in general, have been a little bit better? When they got to the playoffs and things weren't clicking in all cylinders against the Ravens, would Brady's experience and his guile get you to the finish line in that game? Does a guy like him maybe get you over the hump in the one game you don't play well in the playoffs?
I also think Cris Carter makes such a great point here.
This is the struggle that most people, when they get beyond 35 years of age, playing the major sports, it's that my brain, yes, is working at the highest level it's worked at, but I can't get my body in position to do what my brain actually sees. So you can give Tom Brady's brain part credit, but his ability to embrace physical training and the nuances to looking at doing things a different way, because he is not a good athlete, but he has managed to turn himself into one of the greatest athletes ever, playing an athletic sport. So, yes, I give his brain credit, but for Tom, if he wasn't doing the type of training that he was doing, if he wasn't sacrificing his body as far as what he was going to eat, finding out how he was going to be able to produce fuel, all those things set the table for, in clutch situation, this dude is second to none. So that's one thing that's keeps driving him, because I'm so good when the game is at its most stressful, when it's at its peak, that being in the playoffs, that being third downs, that being fourth quarters. Tom Brady is brilliant at doing that. So I think that right there, that ability to be able to continue to do that has kept him younger in his body than his actual age is.
Brady's mental toughness to constantly will himself to make sure he's in the best physical shape he can possibly be in order to play at the highest level at this age, mind you. It's easy for someone like me to highlight all the things he does, sticking to a very strict diet, foregoing all those delicious foods, not drinking any alcohol, going to bed at 9 p.m. and waking up at 6 a.m., getting his workouts in no matter what. Even if he has a wedding function the night before, he's working out at 6:30 a.m. the next day, making sure his practices are perfect, not just working out for the sake of going through the motions, committing to the ethos that perfect practice makes perfect. He's always focusing on getting the techniques right, because Brady knows during the week is where you can make mistakes. So during the week is when you want to make sure that all the kinks are ironed out. Because in football, you don't get second chances. You have to get it right. And that's why you hear all the Hall of Famers like Troy Aikman and Kurt Warner highlight how amazing it is that Brady always makes the right decisions during pressure moments. Mistakes during big moments cost championships. Now, all of this is easy to say, but to actually do it, and to do it consistently for over 20 years, it's a completely different type of mentality. And that's why Tom Brady is the GOAT.
The GOAT among NFL quarterbacks and the baby GOAT. Billy Goat Gruffin and the baby GOAT. Got Brady My Homes, right? I just like to reduce it to this. I mean, it's just what storyline, who am I rooting for? And as much as I appreciate what Brady has done, I said to Michael earlier, I'm rooting for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs because, and you know about this word, another dynasty in the making. I'd love to see another dynasty in the NFL. And I'd also love to see us be able to have someday soon a Jordan LeBron type conversation about Brady and Mahomes. So who are you pulling for Why? Who you got? Just give us your thoughts on this matchup between these two quarterbacks and these teams.
All right. I agree with you in terms of the matchup. I think Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback and maybe the greatest football player to play in the National Football League. He is the true GOAT. There has never been another player in the history of the game to play in 10 Super Bowls. He will be playing his 10th come Sunday. He has 6 Super Bowl rings already. And when you think about a guy like Tom Brady, he comes out of a place where if you are drafted in the 6th round or the 7th round, the probability of you becoming a starter might be slim to nil. Well, that happened. Not only did it happen, but it happened in a way to where he embraced it, he grew, and became better for it, and was a true competitor. Now, he's been classified as a system quarterback because of the Patriots and Bill Belichick. He has stepped outside of that arena now, and he's leading the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The one thing I know about Tom Brady and what he brings to the table, and the reason why the Buccaneers are here today, is it because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers made a commitment to one of the greatest football players to have ever played a game at the quarterback position, period. When they made that decision, you don't think that those other players, those other 52 players around him said, wow, we got to go. We going to be better because we got to go. He is still capable of throwing. Once they saw him throwing the ball on the football field to Mike Evans and everybody else, they're like, oh, we got us something. Defensively, we just got to pick it up because we're going to score some points with the talent we got. So that commitment alone set them apart.
I was listening to interview, and I wish I remembered the former player's name, but who, when we were at the height of talking about Guerrero and the pliability and the Brady training, and he said, listen, I will just tell you period, point blank, it was a defensive end. Hitting Tom Brady feels different than hitting other quarterbacks. And he couldn't just explain why. He just said the way other guys seem more rigid. And when I hit Brady, he seems to just absorb, like I absorb into him. So whatever he's doing pliability-wise has clearly been effective.
Yeah, he's a special quarterback. He's been doing it a long time, won a lot, and, you know, he's definitely one of the greats.
Of Tom Brady's throws. And it really is remarkable, Dan. I mean, look, people can say whatever he want. In that AFC Championship game, whenever he needed to, that ball was still in there perfectly. I mean, they converted so many third downs, the touchdown to Philip Dorsett. I mean, the ball, they were covered. Those guys were covered, and he's still finding a way to find that ball into the exact right place.
And I always said you can't cover a perfect pass.
Right.
Doesn't matter how close, the defensive back might be. If you put it in the right location, with the accuracy, you just can't cover it. And Tom has always been able to do that in critical situations and come up with plays that he, has to make and throws he has to make. And that's what makes him, Tom Brady. And what he's been doing is incredible.
I mean, that man is the best thing that I want to say damn near I've ever seen. So, you got to give him it where it's at. Tom Brady's definitely going down in history as one of the best to ever step on the football field.
Down in Tampa, Tom Brady is proving he hasn't fallen off the cliff yet. In fact, quite the opposite. The 43-year-old has been named the NFC Offensive Player of the Month for October. He's the first Buccaneer in team history to receive the honor. Additionally, he's one of just 4 quarterbacks in NFL history to receive both AFC and NFC Offensive Player of the Month recognition. This is the 11th Player of the Month award Brady's earned in his career, the most of any player all time. TB12 led all quarterbacks with his 12-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio in October.
One of the interesting things about the Super Bowl is you played in one early in your career and thought to yourself, I'm going to be back, and never got back. And here's Tom Brady for his 9th time. I mean, it's somewhat ridiculous.
It's amazing.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I'm jealous.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
But it is amazing for a player, just one player, and especially at that position, because it's tough to get back. And I only went one time, and pretty amazing stuff what they're doing up there in New England.
But for Tom Brady to come in year 15 or so and to be so focused on the minutia, the tiny little things, the making sure you're there for OTAs, the spending the one-on-one time in the offseason with the receivers. I mean, we got a little glimpse of it with this Tom vs. Time documentary. I would imagine that's almost harder because it's almost, you go through this stuff, it's almost by rote by year 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He's doing this every single day. Is the focus part as hard, if not harder, than the actual football that he's playing?
I think so. I mean, he's obviously, and we all are creatures of habit. You need to. Meetings are at 7 a.m. I lift at 10. Practice is at 1. I get treatment at 2. Film from 3 to 4. They're all these great high-level, very productive athletes are creatures of habit. And to do it for going on 18 years, 19 years, going into 20 years, you would think at some point the monotony of it would wear on you. But it just doesn't seem to wear on him at all. He keeps putting up the same impressive numbers and keeps winning football games.
The other thing that's remarkable is Brady's ability to motivate himself and to continue to want to go through and do all the things during the week that's necessary to win. I've even heard Shannon Sharp say if it was just turning up on Sunday to play, then that's easy. It's all the things he has to do during the week that wore on him. Yet Brady does it. Brady continues to be able to do it.
From the get-go, his first point in the league, he knew he couldn't overpower people with his arm. He had to beat them mentally. He figured out how to do it early on, and he's still doing it to this day.
His secret weapon, Nick, and he's the first person I ever heard say this, is instead of the big arm, like the great ones have had, it's his brain. And his ability to continue to create the adversity, create a challenge in his mind week after week, I think is phenomenal. What he is doing and the drive to continue to play and to play for less money.
When you see Tom Brady playing at 41 years old, playing in his 9th Super Bowl.
It's pretty cool.
Is there any, and you wouldn't have been a great player unless you're a great competitor. I know how competitive you are.
Yeah.
Is there any, damn, I was born too soon. I should have been born with these rules in this league, and I would have played well into my mid-40s.
So there's no, if you talk about like jealousy and stuff like that, it could have been, no, I don't have that, but I do believe, I could have probably played longer, but it was, some health stuff, but I still played till I was 38.
Yeah.
It's not like I had a short career, but I really give some of these guys credit. I mean, even though the rules have changed, they still get hit, and they got to still go through that process. In off season, Tom Brady got to say to himself, hey, man, I got another year. I got to go through that whole process again, the mental part, the working out, all that stuff. And he loves it. And he talks about it all the time. And that's where, when you start to get older, that you may just slack off a little bit.
Who has more rings than him? Who's done what he's done? So, you tell me.
For Tom Brady as a quarterback, he's 41, talking about he wants to play till he's 45, and you see Drew Brees and a number of these other guys talking about playing well into their 40s. You had a long career in your own right as well, but what's the mentality like when you start to get later in your career? And for so many of these guys, the fire's still burning at that level.
And that's what it is, because once you're done, you're done. There's no senior league for football players. But so at the same time, it's like that competitive, just that burning desire to want to play and just have that action of, what it takes to get to a Super Bowl, what it takes to win games, the preparation, during the week, all the things that you do for that one moment in a game that might, cause you to win that game. That's what the action of it. That's what they love.
As Marshawn Lynch once said, I'm all about that action, boss.
Not the action.
And Tom Brady is still all about that action.
When you have the opportunity to get the GOAT, don't you have to kick the tires on that? We're not just talking about another player here. We're talking about the greatest player in NFL history. I thought it was worth the move at the time. The Titans apparently thought there were other things they could do and that Tannehill was the right quarterback for them, and maybe that he'd be the right quarterback for a longer period of time. That plays into the decision as well.
I apologize to Pats fans in advance as I couldn't find a lot of footage. Stop talking. Getting tongue-tied. Not just going to work out. Insert 4. Because Brady knows that during the week is the time to make sure that all the kicks. Because Brady knows that during the